Neela Janakiramanan, a plastic surgeon and author, well, no, she reckons one of the real villains is, in fact, a frontbencher of the Victorian opposition, which hasn't been able to run anything in this thing. Now, I should say that Janakiramanan is of the left. She says she's an activist herself. So, states, even on her Twitter bio, she states her pronouns, she, her, as if you didn't know, and says she lives on Aboriginal land. And she says this disastrous second wave of infections is also the work of Liberal frontbencher Tim Smith. He's responsible too for this catastrophic second wave by aggressively undermining all the public health messaging that would have stopped this from spreading through the community. Who knew that Victoria was agog, hanging on Tim Smith's every word and obeying him? If hotel quarantine is a spark, she says, Tim Smith is a wind fanning the fire. Joining me is this unbelievably influential and nefarious character, Tim Smith. Tim, thank you so much for your time. Are you guilty of helping cause this catastrophe?
Andrew, that is one of the most preposterous, personally offensive and ridiculous allegations that has ever been levelled at me in my life. I have simply sought to point out this government's immense failures to manage the coronavirus here in Victoria. I mean, don't forget, we had the toughest lockdown in the country some months ago. And where did that get us? Well, we've now got slightly over 3,000 active infections, and we are spreading this virus back around the country. The second wave was caused by Daniel Andrews' monumental stuff-up with hotel quarantine that allowed the virus to seep back into the community through untrained security guards, bouncers, if you like. He's also failed to do accurate contact tracing. I mean, allegations that I heard this afternoon on the ABC that up to 1,000 cases in Melbourne at the moment have not been contact traced. And that was Raph Epstein, hardly the biggest critic of Daniel Andrews, who was making that allegation this afternoon on Melbourne radio. So Andrews has completely stuffed up hotel quarantine, failed to do active contact tracing properly, and his general demeanour is to blame the Victorian people. Well, that's just wrong. And then you've got his fellow travellers on Twitter blaming me, blaming the Liberal Party. I mean, it's just madness. Honestly,
as I keep saying, and I've said since April, very tough on things that don't matter, like the ban on golf for a while, very weak on exactly what we must do. Quarantine the infectious and look after people in aged care homes in particular, look after the older. They're very much most likely to die. Not the only ones, but overwhelmingly the most likely. Failed on both counts. Instead, I think it's legitimate for us to say what is doing very tough, the very tough action he is taking on the peripherals is peripheral. For instance, may I ask you, forcing us to wear masks, is there seriously a need for people out in the open air, walking alone, sitting on a beach, sitting in the park on their own to wear a mask? Is this really going to stop them from getting sick or spreading the infection?
No, not in the slightest. I mean, I got pilloried on the ABC on Monday night, and I thank you and Gerard Henderson very much for drawing the public's attention to this on Tuesday night on your program, Andrew. I got pilloried on the ABC for merely pointing out that the idea that you're taking your dog for a walk around the block and not wearing a mask would not spread coronavirus. Now, I think wearing a mask in a supermarket or on public transport is perfectly reasonable, and everyone should be doing that in Melbourne today. But the idea that you have to wear a mask walking around the block or walking your dog is absurd. And some of the exemptions, I mean, visitors to mothers who have recently given birth are only allowed 2 hours with the mother. So husbands are going to be booted out of hospitals after only 2 hours meeting their newborn. You can spend the afternoon at the hairdresser doing whatever. I mean, the other remarkable exemption is that if I walk down the shops here in Kew, I have to wear a mask. But if I'm smoking, and I don't smoke, but if I happen to take up smoking this week, I don't have to wear a mask. I can walk down the street smoking. Can you believe that?
I can believe it, unfortunately. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous because studies have shown that the chances of getting the coronavirus in the open air, even without a mask, are very, very, very low. It's an indoor transmitted disease or virus predominantly. Tim Smith, I hope viewers can see that you're not the Machiavelli, the evil genius, the people causing Victoria to sicken, and some activists should really get some sense of perspective. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Andrew.